Good afternoon, everybody, and we are another episode of Pincheo's Garage. Today we're working on my car. My car had some really bad brake wear recently, so we're going to redo the rear brakes, and we're going to do a full DIY on the rear brakes. First thing you need to do is jack up your car. I think after watching all of my videos, I think you guys are able to jack up your car now. So the next thing we need to do is take your wheel off, and then we're going to take out the calipers. The first thing you're going to need to do is find where your calipers bolt carriers are. They're very, very simple on the Mark IV GTI. And there's two of them. Here's one, and the second one's right below it. You're going to need to take, like I have adapters on mine, so I'm going to take the adapters off. Once the adapters are taken off, you take the two bolts off the carrier, move the carrier out of the way, the rotor will come off. We're going to be doing new rotors and pads on here, and we're going to be lubing all the hardware as well, because you need to when you redo the brakes on these cars. Right here I can probably show you, I'll show you how bad the wear is on my pads. Over here, you'll see, here's an example right here. You'll see how much meat is actually on the pad and actually the backing. When your backing plate is bigger than the actual amount of pad on the brake, it's time to replace them. That means you're going too far down and you're due for a replacement. So make sure you guys pay attention to them. And you'll notice on my other pad, they're worn pretty evenly, just the same. So this is a good thing, because that means you know your brake system's wearing properly. Whenever you have uneven wear, where one side's bigger than the other, that means the caliper itself over here is only applying pressure to one side of the pad versus the other. That means there's something up with either your carrier bolts that are probably dry, not lubricated. So you guys got to pay attention to things like this, because this can cause some severe issues down the road where you're going to have very, very quick brake wear or improper stopping. Or if you have the car on a hill and you put the brake on and you rely on your handbrake, it won't hold it down. Tools needed for your job: breaker bar, 17mm ratchet. You're going to need an 8mm Allen socket, a 5mm Allen ratchet, 16mm wrench, 15, a Phillips, an extension. Now I'm doing some other work on my car, so the other two wrenches aren't needed. But if you guys want to, you guys can follow along for that one later down the road. That's actually I'm removing my camber plates on my car, because my wheels and tires, brand new tires on my car with about 3-4 degrees camber on the car. I only got 3 months out of them. Not very good investment on camber. However, the car looked great though when I aired out. Here's another tool in my arsenal that you're going to need to actually take off a rotor sometimes. Sometimes the little Phillips that's on here, little screw that's on here, where a normal Phillips just can't cut it. You need what we call an impact driver. Now these impact drivers you use by hitting it with a hammer, and it uses the force of the hammer to actually twist it and just break the screw loose without stripping it. Make sure you take this screw off so the rotor can actually come off, so when you put your new rotor on, you put it on the same way using the impact driver tightening option. Pretty much you put it on the loose option, you hit it with the hammer, and it will just break it loose. Very easy to do. Once you do that, like I was showing you earlier, take these two bolts, loosen them up right here, top one and the bottom one, and then this will allow you to take the carrier out of the way so the rotor can come off. Okay, so one step that a lot of people don't like doing, I do it anyways, just to confirm that I get the right part when I go to the auto parts store. I'll take the new rotor out, take the old one, and we size them up. Make sure that the rotor itself has the matching holes. Sometimes some auto parts places have universal rotors where they have two sets of holes. You don't want to get those. You want something that has a 100% matching everything. You want to also match up the diameter. Make sure that they match up all around, top to bottom. So you don't have a funky shaped rotor or something that's off. If you want to, you can spin it. Make sure you see no bends in the new rotor. One thing that you also have to do with every rotor you purchase, get a can of brake cleaner, because they're coated with oil to prevent rust when packaging. So you have to pretty much degrease these before installing with the new pads, okay? So get yourself some brake cleaner and just hose the brake pad down and just wipe it off. Once you don't feel any more greasiness on it, you're done with cleaning it for one side. Make sure you do both sides. So just feel it, make sure that thing's dry, and do the other side. Repeat the process on both sides of the brakes, on left and right, because they both come the same way. Well, that's pretty much it for cleaning and installing brake rotors. Now, here's a good example of poor brake wear. These were on my left side and these are on my right side. As you can see, the left side has almost no material. The right side almost has about double the amount of pad. So something's going on with this side of the car or this side. Either the piston's staying clamped down more, so in other words the brakes are dragging, or someone just replaced one side of the pads. I bought this car used, so I don't know what was necessarily done on the rear brakes. So now with further inspection, as you can see, the brakes had to be done on this car. They're pretty bad. So we're going to fix everything on the rear brake system, make sure everything actually does everything proper. These right here are new brake pads. As you can see, the amount of meat on them is pretty substantial in comparison to what you see in the old ones. So we're gonna fix all of that today. The next thing you're gonna need to do is open your brake fluid reservoir. Since we're gonna push the pistons in, brake fluid will be pushed back into the system. So what you're gonna need to do is open this up, get a rag and wrap it around the reservoir, since it will spill. You don't want to make a mess on the ground. Another tool you guys might need for brakes is some anti-seize lubricant. This is what you're going to use to lubricate the guide bolts on your calipers. So what you're going to do is, once you have all the brake pads removed, you're just going to pull the brake pad carrier off. You just slide right out. And what you want to do is clean all that grease out of there. Clean the grease off the two bolts on top and bottom. That way you can put all new lubrication on here, so these bolts slide on here really nice, and that way you guys get proper wear on your pads. That's one big thing that causes improper wear on brake pads, is these bolts drying up on you guys. Okay, so you clean it off, use some brake cleaner and just clean it all off. And then on both sides, top and bottom, right here on the actual piston itself, you want to do the same. Clean that all off with some brake cleaner right there. On the carrier itself, you want to do as much cleaning as you can. That way when everything gets reinstalled, everything's lubed up and is going to properly move forward and back, or left and right, I guess, to apply proper pressure on the rotor. So this is another tool that you guys want to either purchase or rent. This is pretty much a caliper compression or piston tool. What this allows you is that on our cars, on Mark IVs, the piston is actually a twist-on piston, so it's threaded. So this actually allows you to push the piston back into the caliper and allows you to remove it. There are specific sizes for everything. So just go down to your piston and find the appropriate size adjuster. Make sure it doesn't have any crazy play. It's just on there nice and snug. If it is, then use your tool and install it. I'll show you guys how to install the tool right now. Here's the tool installed. So once you have it installed, you pretty much hold it here with a wrench and you twist until you push the piston all the way in. Remember to have that brake reservoir opened because it will start spilling. If you don't open that reservoir, it will hold the pressure in and it won't allow you to push the piston all the way in. As you can see, the piston's all the way down. You're going to push it in until you can no longer push it anymore. The piston compression tool is probably one of the best tools you'll ever own for doing brakes. And I'm doing this with one hand, so bear with me, guys. So I have to do the job first and then I can show you guys afterwards. But these little notches line up, and then obviously it's not going to look like that all crooked and stuff, but that's the example. Once you get it there, you're going to use a crescent wrench, tighten this down as hard, and then start loosening. Turning. You're going to turn clockwise. You're going to tighten counter with the crescent until you break it loose finally, and then it'll allow you to start pushing it in. Keep turning clockwise. This will loosen up because you're going in. You're going to need to tighten this down so you can keep pushing it in. Eventually you'll get to the bottom like I have. I'll show you one more time. Just like that. And now it's time to lube up your guide bolts and the inside of the carrier here as best you guys can. Make sure you lube it up a lot because this is what's going to allow the brakes to go forward and back and wear the pads properly. As you can see, what I showed you earlier, the pads were worn very improper. So this will allow to help you guys to do it right, okay? So I'm going to do an example right up here. Opening jars with one hand is not the easiest, but I can do it. Pretty much when this side is done, you just repeat the process on the other side. Once you do, you're done with the rear brakes. It's very, very simple. It's just more time consuming on the back since you need to do you got to use a special tool for the back. But just a little bit of this stuff and just slather it all over it. The more the better. It won't hurt it. It's just lubrication. It just allows the guide bolt to slide. A lot of people might think this might be overkill, but you'd be surprised on how much of this stuff is actually needed and used when these bolts start heating up. Make sure you use high temperature lubricant, anti-seize, because you don't want to burn it off. Then it'll be pointless. But that's how it's going to look like. Okay, repeat the process on the bottom. And then on the inside of the actual carrier, put a little bit of that lube in there. Like I said, just to allow it to slide better when you apply these on. And then reverse the installation process. I'll show you guys how to put the pads on really quick. A bit of advice. I recommend that you grease up the backing plate with the same lubricant you guys use to do the guide bolts. This just allows so it doesn't squeak when you're braking and whatnot. on the if your brake pads came with shims, install them. Same thing, install a couple, do a little bit of grease in between the metal, because that will make it squeak. So that will prevent the squeaking on there. Do it for the top and bottom. Anything that touches metal besides the rotor and the pad, I would recommend just put a little bit of anti-seize on there to prevent any of the squeaking on your brake system. This just allows for just a better ride quality, less noise on the road. So once your brake job is done, this is what it's going to look like. The brake pads have these little springs in them. You're going to have to push them in and slide them into place. They don't fall into place, so you're going to have a little bit of a hard time. I said a couple cuss words, so I didn't want to post it online, but pretty much just reverse the process on how you took everything apart, put it back on the same way. Torque specs, just look it up online. I'll give you guys the torque specs in a little bit. So to tighten everything back down, it's just going to be the 2 carrier bolts here. I took out the ABS sensor because I wanted to clean it out, so I cleaned out the ABS sensor just with some brake clean, nothing special, just wipe it down. But remember to tighten down these 2 bolts and that right there, the ABS sensor, and then you're done with your brakes. Thanks everybody for watching Pinche Al's Garage. I'll post the torque specs on the webpage, and hope to see you guys soon again for some more DIYs.